My name is Stephen Doan. I'm the House District Representative for District 69. I represent Erlanger, Ellesmere, Independence, in Kenton counties, as well as a little bit of Crestview Hills and about 2 voters in Edgewood. And then I have the majority of Florence over in Boone County. So I still am a practicing attorney here in Northern Kentucky. That's kind of how I got into politics, becoming an attorney and realizing that people that make the laws aren't always the sharpest tools in the box. And sometimes we need some people to go down there and who's got a different understanding of the way things are. And so I've always been involved in politics in that respect. And that's kind of one of the reasons I wanted to go down there. It was to make sure we had people that understood what the laws were and what we were doing with those, as opposed to people that just, did whatever a lobbyist or some special corporate interest told them to do. It's been interesting down there. I came in with a lot of, I think, animosity towards me. I had primaried a 16-year incumbent who was the only member of the state house that had a 100% voting record with the Chamber of Commerce. So whatever they wanted, he did. And there was a lot of animosity towards me. I certainly know that a lot of lobbyists weren't happy that I was there. But I was willing to put that beside me and to go down there and to do work and to meet with them. And I did that. I met with anyone and everyone that wanted to come to my office. I met with people from the ACLU. I met with people from any lobbyist group, any organization, Republican, Democrat, I didn't care. I met with them. And that's what I was going to do down there, is I was going to listen to everybody. I was going to take their concerns in and truly listen to them and try to make, the best decisions that I could for them. I did that. And I had some success in some areas. I was able to table a bill that I thought was unjust and hurt small business owners. For the first time, as far as I could find in the state's history, I was successful to table a piece of legislation, while the opposition did not want that to happen. And ultimately, I suffered as a result of that. But that's what you do. That's leadership. You go down there, you find out what the right thing is to do, and you get a spine and you stick behind it.
Are you ruffling some feathers down there?
I think so. People sometimes won't look you in the eye, and that's kind of one of those things that, well, if you won't look at me, that's fine. I'll look at you. And I'm undeterred by any of that, and I'm willing to keep pushing forward. You've got to believe in yourself. You got to fight for your beliefs, and that's what leadership is, and that's what I went down there to do.
So do you want to speak to what just recently happened this past week regarding committees and removals?
Sure. So, I was walking out of the bathroom, after a long day there in the session and we were getting ready to go home, and one of the other freshman reps grabbed me and he said, "Hey, you just got kicked off like a bunch of committees. Like 10 people just got kicked off committees." And I said, "What? Like, what do you mean?" And he goes, "Yeah, you just got kicked off judiciary and education." And I said, "Huh, okay." And so, there were a couple of us. It wasn't 10 people. It ended up being 6. And surprisingly, it's an interesting mix of people that got kicked off committees.
Mm-hmm.
Kim Mosier got kicked off a committee, and I've gotten to know Kim, and she's a sweet person, a decent person, and I really enjoyed our time talking to her. But we don't always share the same policy positions or have the same ideas on times. And so it was just interesting to see the mix of reps that got kicked off their committees, and even a guy like Josh Calloway. Josh Calloway is a preacher, just a salt of the earth guy that doesn't want to do anybody any harm, fights for what he believes in. And, so it was just a strange thing that happened, but, I'm undeterred by it. I assumed something like this would come, that there would be some retaliation, and I'm not too concerned about it. I'm going to keep being who I am and what the people of my district sent me down there to be.
So who made that decision?
It would have been made by the Committee on Committees. So that is the committee that decides, who is on what committee, who goes where, and that's composed of leadership.
So can you join another committee? So you are off now. Was it government and education?
I'm off judiciary, which is the committee that all the lawyers are on. That's the one that deals with, laws, right?
Right.
You decide how the courts function, and you decide what what most of the criminal statutes are going to be, what most of the civil causes of action that people are going to have. I mean, that's where you would put a lawyer,
Sure.
and that's where all the lawyers. So I'll be the only lawyer that's not on judiciary down in Frankfort. But I was also kicked off the education committee. So I still have the local government committee. I still have one local government. It deals with cities and counties, and really that's a committee that I've had a lot of success in. I represent and listed them all out at the beginning of the show, all the cities and counties that I have. So I'm happy to still be there and to be able to listen to my elected officials, who are the ones that put me in office. When I ran to primary the incumbent, I had a list of local officials that had endorsed me: county commissioners, mayors, council members, city school board members.
Mm-hmm.
He had none. And so those were the people that put me into power. Those are the people that I listened to. My local officials, tell me all the time what the issues are, what I'm proposing, or what is being proposed, and how it impacts them and how it impacts you ultimately. I think government should be local. And so I'm happy to still be on that committee, to still be able to lead. And I've built a lot of great relationships down there. So being taken off a committee or two doesn't bother me. People know that I'm smart. People know that I'm a critical thinker, and I'm going to keep telling people, about issues and bills and things that could be better. And that's really where I've had a lot of success.
So what are the next steps?
Well, we're in the interim. So, no legislation will be passed. The final act was taken. The final act of the legislative session to remove us off of committees was taken, and there'll be no other actions until we gavel back in. Now, there will be an interim. So being removed from those two committees prevents me from sitting during any interim hearings on those. There's a chance I could be reinstated at the beginning of the session, but I highly doubt that's going to happen. And so what's going to happen is I'm going to look forward to what legislation is being proposed and discussed in the interim. It'll be very telling because a lot of people, their priority bills are discussed. I know that I have some things scheduled for the interim, so we'll see, what our other local officials here that are helping me move those, how they feel about this. And I would imagine that I'm probably not going to be set back too far or at all. And so we're just going to keep working and figuring out what's the next thing the state wants to do.
What happens now that you're not in that particular committee? You can't file bills pertaining to
I can file bills. No privilege has been taken from me. No privilege can be taken from me. I am a constitutional officer. The Constitution says what I'm allowed to do. It says how I get into office. It gives me my rights. I still have all the same rights as a representative as any other member of leadership. You cannot take those away from me. Now, the committee is just a structure. It's something that we've set rules that the House operates on. It's not in the Constitution. There's a rules that we've agreed to. And so those committees are just where bills go to be discussed. So I can still file legislation. That legislation goes into what's called the Committee on Committees. It's that group of leadership that basically decides where they're going to broker things. And from there, a chairman would request a bill. So if I file a bill on, painting houses, and the chairman of whatever committee likes that, he goes request the bill. It's sent to his committee. It's then discussed by the members of that committee. Usually around 20 is about what a committee has. And then a vote is taken from that, whether to refer the bill from the committee to the floor, and what expression should be taken. So if the bill passes through committee, it goes to the House floor. Then it has to get a certain amount of readings. So when you file a bill, it gets a first reading. When it comes out of committee, it gets a second reading. And then from there, you start to move it forward into the process. Once a bill has 3 readings, then it can go into what are called the orders of the day. The orders of the day are their live bills. Anything on that list can be called, taken action on, voted up or down by the members of that body, depending on what leadership wants to come through. So all of it has been taken away from me, is just the ability to say whether I think a bill should come to the floor or not. 1 out of 20 is not going to swing anything. It's not going to change anything. So, I still have my vote. It can't be taken away from me. It's what the people sent me down there to have. I can still speak on the floor. I can still speak in committee. I can sign up just like any other member to come down there and speak. And so I can still have bills heard. I can still do anything I want. It's just just one of those little actions to send a message or a slap on the wrist, really.
So did they replace you in committee? Did they put someone else in your seat?
No, they've not put anyone else in my seat. They're just open spots. There's no formal amount of people that are supposed to be on a committee typically. So, anybody that they just operate with one less body. I mean, in theory, I guess you could put 100 people on a committee. It's just, that's probably a little too much, but.
Nothing would probably get done if you had 100 people on a committee.
Yeah. Well, nothing gets done with 100 people in the house sometimes.
So how can we support you?
Get the word out. Really, that's what it's about. I would imagine that I think this was intended to make me look weak. I think that was the intent behind the action. And I don't know that it has made me look weak. I think that based on the numbers of calls and texts that I've gotten from, members of the House, friends, lobbyists, people all around the state, I do not feel isolated. I do not feel alone. I've had so many people come up to me and to tell me that keep fighting, keep doing what you believe in. That's what we sent you down there for. The only person that I have ever heard attack me for being outspoken was a Democrat that lives in my district, and I don't really listen to him anyway. So get the word out. Understand that we need more people to be engaged and involved. I would expect that somebody's going to think that this makes me weak and they're going to come and primary me, and they've got that right. And I encourage them to come put their name on the ballot and to understand all the hard work that we have to put in and to go through to even get there. And so just keep us in your thoughts, keep us in your minds. It's interesting. We had 3 reps from Kenton County taken off committees. So it's almost an attack on Northern Kentucky, if you think about it, that our largest county up here loses 3 representatives off of committee seats. That's a significant voice, and it's leadership's prerogative to decide who goes on what committees, and so it doesn't hurt me at all. It makes me stronger, and I think I've got a lot more supporters out of it as a result.
Do you think contacting leadership would help reinstate you on those committees if your constituents so felt inclined to do so?
Congressman Massey has done a couple of tweets regarding what we did. The news has picked up what happened. Word is out. People know. County parties have contacted me. People are upset about it. I don't know that contacting them will matter. I think that they've made this decision and they're going to stand by it. I'm a guy that's shown to be unpersuadable. You can twist or wrench my arm as much as you want, and I'm not going to move. And I would imagine that they've dug in and they recognize who I am and what I believe, and they're probably not going to want to move too much either. So you can call them, you can make their Twitter, give them 1,000 notifications. I don't know that it's going to matter in this situation, though.
Sounds like we need to replace leadership.
Yeah. How does that happen?
Well, the same way that anything else happens. Leadership is elected every 2 years, and so it would be in the next cycle when people come up for leadership. You're voted on by the caucus, and so we kind of have an opportunity in the weeks before the session begins. If you're a new member, you have a vote. So when we elected this batch of leadership, people can throw their hat in the ring. Anybody can throw their hat in the ring. You can announce. There's a kind of a made up timeline that they have as to when somebody can file and announce. And then about that, a week later, we all meet as a caucus down in Frankfort, and you give it up or down on every position. So it's selected by the representatives, it's elected by the people, and leadership serves at the will of the caucus. Ultimately, leadership, they have 5 votes, and it takes 51 to get anything passed. So, you know, they serve at the will of the caucus. They are put in by the caucus, and they can be taken out by the caucus. And so it's just a matter of time until those next elections come up, and we'll see if anybody wants to put their name in, or if there's any open seats, or how that happens.
Are there term limits for that?
No term limits for leadership. No, you can serve as long as the body is willing to let you serve.
Just thank you for the hard work, Steve.
No problem. No problem.
Yeah.
I enjoy it, and you know, I'm here to stay, and I don't plan to go anywhere. And you know, if anything, this has made me more popular, and so I'm happy to be able to work hard for the people.
Thank you. And can we briefly talk about the shenanigans that happened last week with the protesting?
Sure. So, you know, we had passed Senate Bill 150. And I give a ton of credit, and in fact, I give all the credit on Senate Bill 150 to Representative Josh Callaway. He was also one that was removed from his committee, from 2 of his committees. You know, Representative Callaway gave a fantastic speech on Senate Bill 5. He called for 4 floor amendments, all of which failed, that would have essentially done many of the things that Senate Bill 150, which ultimately passed, accomplished. Representative Callaway said, you know, during his floor speech, that because of what he is doing, he is risking his political future. He will be removed from his positions because of it, and certainly enough, he was. So we passed a very good bill ultimately in Senate Bill 150. What happened was, you know, Andy Beshear got a hold of that thing and not immediately, but he took his time with it and he gave a veto on it. So we came in on Tuesday to override or it would have been Wednesday, actually, the 29th, to override the governor's vetoes. And one of the first ones that we did was on exactly that, Senate Bill 150. You know, a bunch of students from, I think Jefferson County was the big one. I think Danville might have sent some kids up as well, but they were bussing in kids on taxpayer dollars to protest what we were doing in that veto override. Now, you know, it's gotten a lot of media attention that there was this big protest, that it was, you know, comparing it to January 6th. I'm going to be honest. I worked for Governor Bevin during the pension overhauls, and those protests were insane. Those protests were crazy. I mean, those protests were about 10 to 15 times the size of the protest that was up there. But it was a loud and vocal crowd. And so where it became an insurrection, you just protesting alone I'm fine with that. In fact, I encourage it. You know, come down to Frankfort, show your signs, talk to us, meet us. That's democracy. That should happen. Where it became disruptive was when we went to override that veto on Senate Bill 150 there in the House. Immediately, as soon as it was called, they began to chant, they began to yell. It was deafening. If you go back and you watch the coverage on KET, you can hear what the people are saying because they're speaking into a microphone. But we couldn't hear a thing. There's in fact one time where we had called for a vote on the bill, and one of the representatives out of Louisville, Josie Raymond, stood up and was trying to even understand what the motion that was made was, because we just couldn't hear anything. Slowly, and not slowly as a knock to them, but the Kentucky State Police began to pull those protesters out one by one who had locked arms. If you watch them and you go back on the KET footage of them, they were trained. They were, they knew what they were doing, more so than just a group of people that showed up to protest or to, you know, dispute any bill that goes on. I see the unorganized groups a lot of the times, and these were definitely organized. They knew what they were doing. I've heard rumors that a lot of them were from out of state, that when I think 19 of them ended up getting arrested and getting processed at the county detention center. I understand that there were a lot of out-of-state IDs on that. So, it was embarrassing for them, but it was also a great show of solidarity for our Republican caucus to, stand in the face of hostile protesters and to do what we thought was best for the people of Kentucky.
Yeah, and the bill itself, it's basically saying we're going to protect our kids until they're 18. Once they're 18, they can do whatever the heck they want. But right now, this bill is going to protect those children.
Sure, there were a number of parts to it. One of the parts involved gender surgeries, what some refer to as gender affirming care. We didn't outlaw the surgeries for adults. It's my understanding that they're not happening anyway in Kentucky. What we did is we outlawed it for minors, particularly if you are a doctor that performs one of these surgeries. You could lose. I believe the way that we passed it was you would lose your license. And so, we also prevented puberty blockers on children. And to be fair on the bill, there is this argument that, there are legitimately people that are born with both parts. There are people that do not have an atypical, biological representation. And those people that are truly, unfortunately, born with a defect are able to get the health care that they deserve and that they need. And so this wasn't some type of evil, broad, sweeping anti-trans bill that it's been called. I mean, it was narrowly tailored. It was designed to address a specific instance. And look, if you become an adult and you truly feel that you're born in the wrong body, you can make those decisions. You can do that later. Children don't understand, even with parental involvement, what they are doing when they go down that path. And so what we've done as a legislature is we have said that you need to think about it. You need to wait. You can't buy a tattoo. You can't get a tattoo. You can't buy cigarettes. You can't buy a gun under the age of 18. Why would we let you mutilate your body or take such a significant life-altering change that you cannot possibly comprehend at the age of 18? So I think it was a good bill. I think it was a fair bill. And I'm glad that we were able to get that done.
Yeah, great job.
Yeah, you can't undo surgery, and you can't undo taking hormones or hormone suppressants. Like, you can't undo the damage that would do to a child.
Yeah, there's always this argument that, it's their puberty blockers, it's pausing, and then, they can go back and, you can fix it all later. That's not true. That's just an argument to win an argument. And so, we heard from people that were detransitioning, that had gone through these surgeries, that had done them. And so, it moved me, to be quite honest, that someone was, they were a sexual assault victim. They had been groomed and thought to be less than and to not be a worthy person, and they were confused, and they had a double mastectomy. And one of the things that and she had ultimately detransitioned, and it has gone back to the way God made her. But those are life-altering things that have happened to her. She will never be able to breastfeed a child. Another part of this that, there have been people throughout the course of history that have dressed in different ways, that have identified in different ways. And I'm not saying that that's wrong or that that's not who you should be. I think people should you should be able to be whatever you want, and I might not agree with it. I might disagree with it. I might think that you're silly for doing it. But you should be able to do whatever you want, as long as you're not harming somebody else. But what it comes down to is these puberty blockers are not FDA approved. They are not tested. There is no scientific research or development, and these are new things. There have always been people that are different, and they have their right to be different. But this is a new thing that we are doing, and we do not know the long-term medical impacts of it. It's the same thing that I said with the COVID vaccines. You know, we don't know how these things are going to be treated long-term medically, what you're actually doing to yourself. And so, look, if maybe in the future this is the way that society wants to go, and you know, I'll be a one to stand against it for young children, but you know, really need to hit the pause button on this and figure out medically what we're actually doing to these young people, and to have that conversation as a society before we continue to go down this road full bore.
Well, thank you. Thanks for everything that you're doing down there. Thanks for fighting for the kids. We're up here fighting for the kids as well, and trying to educate the community through our podcasting. So if there's anything else that, if something pops up that you think, oh, we really need to get the word out, let me know, and we'll try to use all the avenues we have.
I sure will. Thank you all so much for what you do. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Speaker, I have 2 grandbabies, and I have 2 young grandbabies on the way. And I will tell you that I have taken losses on a lot of things up here. I'll take a loss on a gambling bill, even though everybody in this house knows I'm adamantly against it. I'll take a loss on a liquor bill that grows liquor in the state of Kentucky, and everybody in here knows that I am adamantly against it. But I refuse to take a loss when it comes to our kids. I refuse. I can't stand idly by. I can't stand here today and not do everything within my power to help our kids. You think about, everybody sitting here in this room right now, think about what I am doing. Think about what I'm risking. I'm risking my political position. I'm risking friendships in here. I'm risking positions that I have, potential positions that I could have, and I am not intending to run for any big office. I have no intent to run for governor. I have no intent to run for a statewide office. And I am willing to stand right here, right now, and risk everything that I have for my children and your children and the children of the state of Kentucky. I'll risk it all when it comes to protecting their hearts, their minds, and their souls.